Okay, our next topic is going to be on the Constitutional Convention. We're going to talk about some of the incidents that led to the convention and then what happened once the founders got together and started writing this document that we call the Constitution. So, there was a lot of discontent with the articles. As we mentioned in the last discussion, they were very weak, and as you saw in class, there were definite flaws with that grouping of government. And then there was a real spark that helped to open people's eyes to the fact that, you know what, we need to come up with a different way. We need to come up with a different path. One of those things was Shays' Rebellion, where you saw the weakness of our national government and its inability to respond to a crisis. It really opened people's eyes to the necessity of a stronger national government to help bring our nation together and move us forward. So, with Shays' Rebellion is one of the sparks that brought people into the fold of wanting to craft something new and do something different. We got the delegates to go to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And some things you need to know about our founding fathers that showed up at the convention. I described them as well-read, well-bred, well-fed, and well-wed. They were up on the current readings of the time. We talked about the Enlightenment philosophers and their influences. They came from great families. They were some of the wealthier people in the colonies, and they were married to some of the big key families. You had people like Madison, who was the father of the Constitution, really kept good detailed records of the convention. You have Washington was the presiding officer of the convention. And you had Benjamin Franklin, who was an elder statesman. And you had Gouverneur Morris, who was responsible for the final wording of the document. And then Alexander Hamilton, who was a strong advocate for a strong central government. And when they showed up in Philadelphia, they had some key areas of agreement. They knew that the articles needed to go. That was one. Second one, they wanted a Republican form of government. It was one of our vocab words from this week, so make sure you know it. They wanted a constitutional government that had balanced power. They wanted property owners to be able to vote, but property owners alone. And they wanted a stronger central government that they had under the Articles, and they wanted to protect property rights. That was the main purpose of government. So those were all the things they agreed on. Now, they had some disagreements, and they had to come to compromise. First off was the idea of representation. Large states wanted the Virginia plan. They wanted representation based upon population. The small states wanted the New Jersey plan, where they had equal representation. What we got was the Connecticut or Great Compromise that kind of wedded those two things together. We had a bicameral legislature, another one of those vocab words, and that brought together a popularly elected House based on population and a Senate with equal representation elected by state legislatures. We're going to look at all these documents this week to get a little more in depth. Another issue of compromise was the issue of taxation and slaves. Northern states wanted slaves to count for taxation but not representation. Southern states wanted the opposite. And what they came up with was 3/5 compromise. That 3/5 of the slaves would count for both purposes. So that would give us equal representation and equal taxation in the North and South. Then finally, the last area of disagreement was the election of the president. Should it be a life term? Should it be annual elections? The compromise was 4-year term. And what they ended up doing was compromising on how to elect the president. Should it be Congress? Should it be the people? Should it be state legislatures? What we ended up getting was the Electoral College. And it kind of weds all those things together. Now, to get the Constitution ratified, once they wrote the document, then they had to go through the ratification politics. You had the Federalists, who were property owners, creditors, merchants. They supported this, idea that the elites should govern, that the excesses of democracy and too much participation, too much power in the hands of people, and strong central government. They wanted Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay were strong Federalists. On the other side, you had the Anti-Federalists. These were your small farmers, your frontiersmen, your debtors, your shopkeepers. They feared a strong national government. They feared power in the hands of elites. They feared the lack of a Bill of Rights. And, that was their strongest argument. People understood the need for a Bill of Rights to protect the people. But the Federalists had the advantage here. One, they were organized. They got their message out first. They controlled the press and were able to get the Federalist Papers out there. And they were better represented in state legislatures. So the Federalist Papers come out. They rally support for the Constitution. And in 1788, state ratifying conventions start to ratify the Constitution of the United States of America.